By day, you work at a job that simply doesn't satisfy you. It's likely not a career, but simply a job. It pays the bills. It puts food on the table. But it doesn't light a fire inside of you. It doesn't fill you with a sense of, I can do it. It just is. But then there's the nighttime, when the rest of the world winds down. In the late, dark hours of the evening, a creative fire gets stoked inside you. The wheels of your brain kick in, the ideas start flowing. You feel a sense of excitement and adventure. You're doing what you know you're meant to do. And yet, there's a loneliness to it all. You work in isolation while others sleep. You wish you had people to bounce your ideas off of, a shoulder to lean on when something goes wrong. Others to applaud your achievements, no matter how big or small. People to encourage you to follow your dreams and goals. Solopreneurs, dreamers, builders, creators, resellers, makers, problem solvers. Like-minded people who want something better. We're here, and we're ready to listen and to help. Welcome to the Night Shift.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to the Misti Media Diner. Welcome back to the Night Shift. Hope all of you, sun is down wherever you are. You've got your tasty beverage in hand. If not, we've got a great selection back here at the diner of anything you could possibly imagine. Thank you all so much for stopping by. This is the first in our new revamped night shift. So we needed to kind of, you might notice we took a few episodes off. Wanted to sit back, retool the show a bit, figure out what exactly we wanted to do and how we want to do it. So our new format is that on Monday nights, we'll be doing education, so business education and tips and tricks for being successful in your solopreneur or entrepreneur career. Wednesday nights is going to be an interview with somebody who is working on their own, doing their own thing, marching to their own beat, if you will, and inviting them on to talk about what's working for them, what isn't working for them, the challenges they face, so that you can kind of get a feel of that and realize that there's a lot of people out there that are in the same boat. So it will feel a little less lonely when we get to talking about what you're doing and what you're working on. And then, of course, Friday night is our free-for-all. It's the Friday night hang. And that's just a get-together of everybody, wind down from the week, talk about your successes, talk about your challenges, just a good gathering spot to kind of recoup from the week. So when I went to go start asking folks to line up and be interviewed for the Wednesday night show, my guest tonight didn't even hesitate, just which means he's really desperate. No, he's a really good guy. He has become a good friend of both myself and of Misti Media. He is a reseller on YouTube and part of a rather large reselling community that I found myself part of at the end of last year. He's incredibly supportive of other resellers, and so much so that he's in very high demand these days. Everybody kind of wants him on their show, wants him to be a part of it, because he brings a lot of humor at the same time that he brings an intelligence and a smartness of the way that he reaches his audience, in that he doesn't dumb anything down. He doesn't talk down to anybody. He's just kind of out there doing his thing. And I thought it would be a really great idea to bring him on tonight and grill him to the third degree. No, to, kind of pick his brain, see where he's coming from, where he thinks he's going, and, what kind of challenges he's been facing as somebody who runs their own gig. So if you would, I would, and Michael says, it don't hurt that he's pretty. I vowed to keep the show professional tonight. Yes, he does have the nickname that I gave him. Unfortunately for him, that has caught on now throughout the reselling community. I did nickname him Ginger Hotness, and now everybody has kind of picked up that ball and run with it. He does make the ladies swoon, and guys too. And fortunately, he's got a great sense of humor about that. So, if you would please welcome to the Misty Media Diner. This is Mike Puzdrak from the January. How are you?
Hey, I'm good, Jay. Thanks for having me. Good to be here.
I am happy to have you here, sir. It's it's unusual to see you, not hawking,
Right,
Mary Kay or unusual jewelry, but just to kind of see you in your element.
right,
And you're coming to us, I'm guessing, from your selling shed.
right. Yes, this is my. This is where the magic happens. I don't know what I'm gonna do with my hands tonight if I don't have things to show you.
The good news
But
is your hands are off screen, so whatever you're doing, we will never know.
you'll never know. Right.
And thank you, everybody. I see we've got quite a few people that have shown up, so I appreciate
Yeah.
it. If you do end up having questions for Mike, please keep it at least PG rated. We know he's a darn looking guy, good looking guy, but he's not here to talk about his modeling career tonight. That is completely separate conversation. We could
Right.
take that up on the Friday night hang if he agrees to come back and hang out with us.
Anytime, buddy. Sure.
So, Mike, I'm curious, what was the first job you ever had?
The very first job I ever had,
Yeah.
I was probably like 14. I don't know, 13 or 14 maybe. And I got a job at a local diner, like a local greasy spoon. I rode my bike down there and I was a dishwasher. I got paid cash under the table. Obviously, I wasn't old enough to work yet. I think I was like 13 or 14. Somewhere I would ride my bike down there and I was a dishwasher. I even forget the name. It was called, I think it was just called the Chai Restaurant. I grew up in a town in Pennsylvania right outside of Philly called Chichester. And like the abbreviation or whatever was Chai. Like everyone just called it Chai, Chichester, or whatever. And I think it was just called the Chai Restaurant or the Chichester Restaurant or whatever. But yeah, I was this little kitchen guy, just washing dishes and putting them back and washing them and mopping and I remember like one of the first days of work or whatever, they had um, like chicken dumplings or whatever on the menu, whatever, and they didn't like sell out of all of it. So they let me take this like big quart tub home with me, and I was like, "Mom, look at this! Look at what I brought home."
Did they give you the? I worked at a restaurant myself in high school. Did they give you the warning about not eating off of the customers' plates?
No, no. But I think I figured that out pretty quickly right there.
It's tempting though.
Yeah,
Sometimes
right.
you see that good meal. Did you have to work through high school, or were you just focused on studies?
I didn't have to work, but I did work. I worked at a country club. So I started that job, and then like my second job, I worked like I don't know when I was 16 or what. I worked there for a couple of years at the restaurant, and then I worked in a drugstore, like a CVS, but the not CVS. They're not around anymore. But I was like the cashier at the front, right? You know what I mean, or whatever. And my good buddy, worked at this country club as a dishwasher. And he's like, "Man, come work with me at this country club. It's fun and all this and that." And he got me a job at this country club. So all through high school, I worked at this country club as a dishwasher with my buddy. And I mean, it was wild. Like the waiters and wait staff, and like even like the members. I mean, it was just like it was craziness. Like we were, we were doing things we shouldn't have been doing at, 16, 17 years old, like drinking
Living
alcohol. You know what I mean?
living out Anthony Bourdain's
Yeah,
Kitchen
really. We
Confidential
really,
for.
we really were. Like it was wild. It was crazy.
Were you one of those kids that looked older than you actually were, so everybody just kind of
Yeah.
assumed you were older?
Yeah, and I had like a fake ID back at the time. And this was like, so this was 94, 95. You know what I mean? Whatever. And it wasn't like the age of like hologram driver's licenses and barcodes that you scan and all this and that. They were just like basic driver's license. And we went to a party sometime, I don't know, some party in Delaware one time. I grew up right on the border of Pennsylvania and Delaware, outside of Philly. And we went to some party sometime in Delaware, and this kid was making fake IDs in this back room somewhere. And like it was like a literal like towel, like a blue towel behind, like on his back of his door, and you like stood there and got your picture taken, and he like made this ID. But they were like simple, all the IDs were simple back then. So I had this like fake ID go. I remember we had this place called like Liquor World, and my buddy that got me the job at the country club, I was like, we were gonna have a party at my house one night, and I'm like, all right, let's go get some liquor. I got my ID, you know. And he's like, I'm gonna wait out here in the car, you know what I mean? We were like 17. He wouldn't even come in, and he took a picture of me. I walked out with a shopping cart full of like Zima, like stuff we were drinking back.
Oh,
like,
good old Zima, yeah.
Zima and like Boone's Farm wine. I don't know if you remember that, like Mad Dog 2020 and vodka. I don't know, whatever. Like it was craziness, and that photo is still around. And he sends it to me every once in a while. But
I was that way too. I definitely presented older, and so the restaurant that I worked at in high school, I would go out with the servers after work, and we'd go over to TGI Fridays, and we'd sit at the bar, and nobody under the age of 21 was allowed to sit at the bar after 11 o'clock at night. And I mean, they served me drinks, and I was there one night when they chased off some high school kids from the other end of the bar, and I was like, "Yeah, boy, those underage kids trying to get in here." So when you were in high school and you were thinking about the future, what were you thinking you were going to do for a career? What was on your mind?
I had an uncle in the family that worked on the Philadelphia Stock Exchange. There's a Philadelphia, there's the New York Stock Exchange that everyone knows about, but there's like a Philadelphia, I don't even know if it's still around anymore or whatever, but he was a stockbroker, stock trader, whatever you call it, in Philadelphia, and I thought that was the coolest thing. I thought that was awesome. And like I had known him, my mom, I didn't know I had known him obviously as like an uncle, but like I didn't know what he did until I got older. And then my mom was telling me, and I was like, that sounds like the best job. Like that sounds like, I don't know, it just appealed to me. So when I was in high school and going into college, I wanted to do like finance or like like business, you know what I mean, and work my way in, because like he's like, any of these finance degrees, you can get it, just get your degree, and then you'll get like an internship, and then you learn the ropes, and then you move up through there. So that's kind of what I was into when I was like in high school, early, or right after high school as well.
So were you pursuing a finance degree in college?
Well, yeah, life took a little bit of a turn for me in my freshman year of college. My parents were divorced, and I lived with my father, and I went away to college, and I came back home, and he was diagnosed with a brain tumor, and 2 years later he passed.
Hey.
So I was like, it was just him and I was like his caregiver for 2 years. So I would like take him to the doctors. I mean, this is like early like internet days, like, you know what I mean, like everything was done in person, everything was written down. And I don't know, like I had like a line, like I was in high school, like, and senior year or whatever, and even freshman year of college, like you're a knucklehead, like everybody's a knucklehead, you know what I mean, like you have maybe an idea or a thought of what you want to do in life, but you're out drinking with your buddies or playing football or whatever you're doing, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like I didn't know how to do anything. I didn't know how to do, like, I remember going to the grocery store like the first time when my dad got sick, and I was like, because when I would go to the grocery store, I would just be like, yeah, give me that, I'll take this, here's this or whatever, like, you know what I mean, like. And then like when I had to like run the house and like do the budget, like, and I was like, holy mackerel, this is crazy, like, you know what I mean, like. And so I don't know, I left college when he got sick, and I never went back. I had to work, I had to help pay the bills, you know what I mean? And then while he was sick, and then when he passed, I was like, I don't know, I was like too far out of it, you know what I mean? And I was just like, I can't just, and I had no, like, I don't know, like I had no, I don't know how to say it. Like, I don't want to say support system, but like I was kind of like out there on my own already. You know what I mean? Like I had
Right.
been on my own for like the last couple years. You know what I mean? Getting this stuff done. So I don't know. I went back to work at a restaurant, and I was like, I was like a sous chef. I was like a number two at a steak and it was an Irish restaurant and bar. I was like the steak guy. I was like the meat guy, like prime rib and filet mignon, and but like the chef was like the man, whatever. I was just like his assistant. So I worked there for a couple years.
They,
But
they
then,
tested how rare the meat was by holding it up to your skin or to your hair. Like,
yeah, no, you
how red is Spike today?
you actually could do it on your forearm, like if you touch your forearm, like rare, like medium rare,
Really?
medium well, and well, like as it gets, you know what I mean, like it's just
Yeah,
it goes less than that. Yeah, I mean it gets tougher as you go up, right? So it's like more well done, right? I don't know, a little thing like
interesting.
that, but yeah, I was just I was just focused on just surviving, really, like you know what I mean, like hustling, like just getting by, you know what I mean, just
Yeah.
like just getting it, just living life. I don't know, you know what I mean, and the classroom and all that stuff just kind of went away from me after my dad got sick.
Were you? I mean, obviously you did it because you wanted to. I mean, you kind of had to, but you kind of did you want to or was there a frustration level there that you were not able to pursue what you were really wanting to go after?
Uh, I don't know, not really. Like I don't know. Like I said, like there's that line, and like once he got sick, it was like, and then I had like it opened my eye. Like I don't know. I like grew up. You know what I mean? And I was just like, well, I just whatever I got to do to make it work, I'm just gonna do it. You know what I mean? Like I wasn't like thinking, oh man, I really wish I was a stockbroker. I mean, I understood the importance of like getting a degree and furthering myself that way. You know what I mean? But on
Right.
the other side, I had the knowledge, practical. Like I'm like I've been doing this for the last 2.5, 3 years. You know what I mean? Like, what do I need to like? I can't just go sit in a classroom now where I need to be working and make money. You know what I mean? Like, and I know how to do that, and I know how to make money, and I know how to make it work. I don't know. It just changed. I don't know how to say it. Like, I wasn't like I was more upset that my dad passed, and I was kind of like
Right.
out there on my own than worried about, oh, did I miss out on being some finance guy? You know what I mean?
Where do you think you got your sense of hustle? So I mean, you're already starting out there at like 13 or 14, working. You're following friends to other jobs. It would have been very easy to just simply fob off and say, forget it. I'm not doing that. What instilled you with that sense of hustle?
Well, okay, so just to back up a little bit, my father was actually like an immigrant. Um, let's back up a little bit more. His parents, my grandparents, were my grandmother was Russian and my grandfather was Ukrainian. But this was long before Ukraine was its own country, obviously. But
Right.
in Russia, they considered them, where you live, they considered you Ukrainian, like, just like regionally, like we say, Southern or whatever, we say West Coast or whatever. Like that area was like Ukraine, where my grandfather was from, and my grandmother lived in Russia, really, more Russia, right? More into the country, right? So World War II happens, and Hitler's rolling through. My grandparents weren't Jewish, but that area where they lived in the Ukraine was like the first part of Russia where Hitler started rolling through. So they got swept up. They weren't Russian. I mean, they weren't Russian. They weren't Jewish, so they weren't killed, but they were captured or taken to a forced labor camp in Germany. So my father was born in this forced labor camp. My grandparents made those big barrels that you see, like, like they put like I don't know, whiskey in with the metal bands around it or whatever.
Yeah.
They made these big barrels in this factory, and they lived upstairs. Not just them, a bunch of these people in this forced labor camp, and they lived upstairs of the factory. And then in the morning they'd go down and work, and then at night they'd be upstairs, whatever. Right? My father was born in that camp. After the war, there was no home to go to in Ukraine, Russia. Right? There was
Right.
destroyed. Right? So they had another family that they knew that had already immigrated to America in Philadelphia. And at that time with immigration, like, you had to have a place to live, you had to have a job, like, because it was like mass, like, chaos in the world with, like, they called them displaced persons. Everyone was trying to come to, like, America or, like, go somewhere, because it was so war torn in Europe and Eastern Europe and stuff like that. So they had this family, and they lived with them for a little while in Philadelphia until my grandparents got on their feet and got their own place and moved out. So my dad always had this, like, you have to, like, work, man. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you don't know what it is to, like, because growing up, I grew up like a normal average. I mean, we weren't upper class, but we weren't lower. We were like middle, maybe lower middle class or whatever. But he was like, if you want anything, you got to go after it. I mean, he put himself through college in LaSalle. He joined, or he got drafted in Vietnam, and then used the GI Bill to put himself through college. So he had that kind of, like, drive. He loved this country so much, like, and he was always like, you don't know what kind of opportunity you have here. You got to go take it. You know what I mean? There's so much opportunity for you to better yourself and be better, and so that was kind of like,
what did he do for work?
he was an accountant. He worked for the EPA. They had a branch in Philly, and his job was, like, when, like, the federal government gives money to the states to whatever, clean up, like, a spill or fix something that's environmentally related. They give the state or the local government or whatever it is a certain amount of money to do whatever it is they got to do. My dad and the people that worked with him, it wasn't just him, their job was to audit or make sure the numbers added up, so that if the federal government gave the state of Tennessee or whatever, you know what I mean,
Right.
$20 million to do whatever, that they spent $20 million on whatever they spent it on, you know what I mean, or whatever, like, make sure it worked out. So he was like a auditor, accountant for the EPA growing up in Philadelphia. But when I became a teenager, it was like the early 90s, and the sports card industry was starting to boom, like baseball cards and football cards and comic books even.
Yeah.
All this stuff was, like, booming, and he started getting into, like, trade shows, or, like, they would have, like, conventions. They would have, like, a hotel ballroom, and people would set up their you still see it, like, at the malls now, kind of like they set up the tables and they sell sports cards and comic books and that kind of stuff, and he was super into it, and I wanted to hang out with him. My parents were divorced, and it was just me and him, so I got into it too. So we would travel around and do these sports card shows and comic book shows, and we were buying all types of stuff and selling all types of stuff. So that kind of, like, and he's like, yeah, man, we could make this as big as, the harder we work, the more we'll make, you know what I mean, or whatever, you know what I mean? And we started getting into the internet. Again, it's like the early days. So, like, I helped, like, make a little website on Angel Fire. I don't know if you know.
Oh my God, Angel Fire! Wow.
Angel Fire. We had a little website. People, and he would list out, we sold, like, the Mark McGuire cards and the, whoever, Ken Griffey Jr. cards. But his thing, because he was so, like, detailed with the numbers and stuff, people would try to complete their sets of, like, the whole year of Topps 1992. So he would go in and, like, list all the common cards, and, like, people were trying to complete their sets, so they needed, whoever, like Joe Schmo from the Giants or whatever, you know what I mean, like, to complete their set. And he would sell it for, like, $1, and people would send us money, physical money, in the mail, like, in the real mail.
Back when you could, you didn't have to worry about it being intercepted on its way to you.
And he would send the card out, or I would pack it up, and he would mail it out on his way to work, or at the post office at work down there in Philly. Excuse me. And that kind of, like, and at the time we didn't know like that everything was mass produced, and we were just like, like we were like, this is great, this is gonna last forever, these sports cards. But that was like my first kind of like real taste of like reselling things. Like we would buy cards from wholesalers or whatever it was, distributors, and then we'd take them, and some we would open and take the good cards and put them in the sleeves and the thing, and put them out on the shows. And the commons he would like put in boxes and separate and all that, and some we would just leave in boxes and sell packs or boxes. And I was into comics. Like I would read comics my whole early childhood. I was a big reader, like when I was young. Comics were one of them, but stories and I like those like choose your own adventure books.
Heck
Like when I was
yes.
young, like I loved
Heck
those
yes.
books. And I would go
Oh my
back
God, I love it.
and read like I'd be like,
Best
all right,
best birthday present ever was opening a nice stack of those coming through. Yeah, absolutely.
yeah. So those were my jam and comics. But I would read all types of book. I was a huge Stephen King fan back in the day. At one point, I had read like everything he had ever written, like that was published, I guess, whatever. But stuff like that. But yeah, so that's where like the hustle came from. Just his mentality, he would tell me some stories, like you don't know what it is. Like you go to the grocery store and pick out whatever you want. You don't know what it is to like wait in line to get into the grocery store, and then you get in and there's like whatever's there is there. That's it, and if you don't buy it, then you're not eating. You know what I mean? It's not like just stuff like that, like old world, like old school things. And he's like, you have so much opportunity here, and if you apply yourself and work hard, it's like American dream stuff. You know what I mean? Like, but it was drilled into me a lot. And then with that reselling of the cards, it just was like I got into it. I was like really into it.
So after he passed, and you were, you know, once again kind of in need of direction for work, where did that take you?
So yeah, so after he passed, I was working at this restaurant, and then I don't know. It was a couple years. There was a couple rough years after he passed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I wasn't the best. I wasn't my best self, we'll say, back then. You know what I mean? Nothing crazy, but I was drinking a lot, and I was not in the right headspace. You know what I mean?
Right.
But I had a friend that worked at a company that made construction materials, and oh no, but before that, I sold cars for a while. I sold cars.
I can see that.
Yeah, I sold cars
You've
at a
got the
Chevy.
personality to make that happen.
I worked at a Chevy dealership, and the owner was like a real cool guy, and then I had two like sales managers that were just like funny as hell, and like we had a good time with it. Like we weren't like, it wasn't no shady business or no funny business. It was just like, it was a good time. It was like a family dealership, and these two managers were like old, and they would bust my chops and I'd bust them back. You know what I mean? And I sold Chevys, I sold Corvettes. You know what I mean? Whatever. So then I had met this girl that I ended up marrying her eventually, but at the time she was just my girlfriend. And she was moving down to Virginia. She had graduated college with education degree. She wanted to be a teacher. And her brother and his wife lived in Virginia. And her brother's wife, her sister-in-law, was a teacher, but she was pregnant and getting ready to have her baby, was going on maternity leave, and she didn't tell the school this, but after she had the baby, she wasn't coming back, right? So she got my girlfriend, her sister-in-law, a job as like a student teacher, I don't know, I forget what they call, like a substitute or whatever, while she was
Right.
gone, while she was out on maternity leave. So for like 4 months or whatever, she was working like substitute teacher, I guess, for her sister-in-law. And then when her sister-in-law finally told the school that that she wasn't coming back, my girlfriend ended up getting a job, like just walked into the job that she was already substitute teaching for. So then I moved.
Michael says my favorite part of working for a dealership was driving the cars back from the auctions.
I never did that, but I never knew how to drive a stick shift, really. Vehicle.
Really?
when I started, right?
Oh,
And I remember I had to deliver a car to a customer one time, and it was a Chevy Aveo, which I don't think they make anymore. They make the Spark.
yeah,
It's like a glorified like smart car. It's the smallest little Chevy that
right.
they make, right? And I had to drive this like maybe a half hour to where this customer was, and I really didn't. I knew how to drive like if a customer pulled up and had a trade in and it was stick shift, I could get it from the dealership to the used car lot where the guy would look at it and back. That was about it. So I had to take this car to this customer. I drove it in first gear, Jay, the whole time.
Oh no.
The whole way
Oh
because
no.
I was like afraid. I didn't want to like shift it and mess up the shifter or like stall it and be in the middle of the street. You know what I mean? So I just stayed in first like the whole time. But yeah, that was funny. But I never had to drive him back for the auction, probably for that reason, because I wasn't the best driver if we had a stick shift. But anyway, I ended up moving down to Virginia with my girlfriend and getting a job at a dealership there, a Chevy dealership, where eventually I ended up selling like commercial vehicles. So now it's like 2003, 2004, whatever, 2005, in that time frame, and the housing market is booming, right? And we're living in Northern Virginia, which a lot of people want to live in DC or right outside the city, but it's like there's nowhere to build anymore. So they kept building out into Virginia and like up into Maryland a little bit. So the housing market was crazy. So I worked as a commercial truck sales guy. I had a territory, and I would sell like fleets of trucks and vans to like plumbers and general contractors.
Nice.
And these were like my people, man. These guys, it was awesome. Like, because like, I mean, it was fine to deal with like Mr. and Mrs. Smith coming in looking for a Chevy Malibu. You know, that's one type of customer. But like, Ralph, the plumber, you know what I mean? Who doesn't, he's just like, dropping F-bombs and he don't care, you know what I mean? Like, whatever, And he's just like, Mike, just bring the truck and I'll sign whatever you got, and all this and that. Was great. That was awesome. And like, I didn't have like a traditional like 9 to 5, which I liked. I had my area, call my customers, try to find some new customers and make some sales. And that was it. You know what I mean? It was awesome. So, but eventually, like, you could see it was going bad. Like, like stuff wasn't adding up with this housing market after a while. Like, people were talking and stuff. So I had a friend that worked back up here in Pennsylvania for this company that made construction materials for commercial buildings, different types of, mostly roofing products for the commercial building industry. And they're based here in Pennsylvania, but they had a job opening in Virginia where I was living. As an inspector, you would go out and inspect these roofs. Not that I wasn't roofing, but we would sell the material to roofers. They would install it, and then an inspector like me would come check to make sure they did it correctly so that the warranty could be issued. Like, you would get like a 10-year warranty or a 20-year. So if you did more stuff to it, enhancements, whatever, you would get a 20-year warranty, and then more, you would get 30-year warranty, whatever. So I'd have the paperwork. I go meet these. But again, it was like, I already knew most of these guys that were doing these roofs, because I was selling roofers trucks too, vans, you know what I mean? Like, so I started working there, and then there was an opening back up here in the home office here in Pennsylvania, and I took that job. We moved back. I got married to my girlfriend. Now she's my wife. We had a daughter. I moved back, and then I worked my way up through this company for the next 10 years, almost 8.5 years, 10 years. And my last job, I was a product manager for one of the products that we manufactured at this roofing company. So it was pretty cool. So I did my time a little bit in corporate America and worked my way up through there. But
what's interesting is it was always the bulk of it was always sales. Like, you had found your niche, that sales were clearly your thing. How did that parlay into online selling?
So one day I'm watching, this is like, I don't know, let's just say it's 2012 or 2013, somewhere in there. And I'm watching TV, and the news, I'm like a nerd, I watch the news, whatever. And they had this story, like this, I don't know, like business story about this guy that was making money selling products from Walmart. and I'm watching it, and I didn't know what retail arbitrage was at that time, or reselling, but it was retail arbitrage. So he was buying products on the clearance section at Walmart and reselling them on eBay, or whatever, flea market or whatever at the time. And it was this whole story about this guy and like this world that I had no idea was happening, what was going on. And I was like, wow, it's awesome. I'm like, I could do that. I could go to Walmart. There's a Walmart right there. I go to Walmart and look at the clearance stuff. And they talked about thrift stores and flea markets and auctions and all that, and where the guy was finding stuff. But basically, this guy was doing retail arbitrage. So I still had an eBay account from back in the day, you know what I mean, like early days. I would sell a few things, like if somebody gave me something, like, and I didn't use it or it didn't fit or whatever, you know what I mean? Or I would buy things, you know what I mean? But I wasn't like a reseller at this time, you know what I mean? But I had an eBay account, so I understood like what it meant. And then I started watching, like, so I Googled, like, because I tried to find, like, it went, it goes by so fast, the story, you know what I mean? Then it's gone, right? So, like, I Googled it or whatever, got on the internet, tried to find it, and I typed in, Walmart reseller or whatever. And these links for, like, YouTube came up. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's like a whole world out here, you know what I mean? And I started following, these names probably won't mean anything to you, maybe not, but Craigslist Hunter.
I remember Craigslist Hunter. Yeah,
he was big. Lonnie Shed Flips is his YouTube name.
I follow Shed Flips. Yep.
And then there's this guy you might not have heard of, Global Voodoo. You ever hear of Global Voodoo?
No.
You probably never heard of him. He was really one of the first couple big YouTube resellers that had a YouTube channel. And his name's Mike, and he was at that time living in Chicago. He lives in Arizona now, and he was like he's one of these guys, like, you either love him or you hate him. Like, he's just, but he's like a straight shooter. Like, he'll just tell you how, then, like, if it upsets you, oh well. Like, but you always know where you're at with this guy, right? You know what I mean? Like,
right.
And I always respected that. Like, whether or not I agree with everything that he said, and sometimes I did and sometimes I didn't, you know what I mean? I always knew that he was going to tell me like it is on his channel, you know what I mean? And he would talk about good parts of reselling and bad parts of reselling, and how it was. He seemed real, you know what I mean? And I followed him and I watched these guys, and I was like, yeah, man. I'm like,
it's funny you say that, because that's how I've always felt about Lonnie and Candace at Shed Flips. Like, I feel like they've always been like the most honest about or Commonwealth Flipper, Kevin also Flipper, is like,
right, yep.
It always feels like they give a really honest look at what it's about. What's interesting to me here is that so many people start off on the eBay route, and then find other places. It's interesting that you were like being led to YouTube as one of the first stops. I mean, I didn't even know that there was such a thing until like November of last year.
Mm-hmm.
When I happened to stumble upon it. It's interesting that, like, right from the jump, you were already finding out about it.
Well, no, so I found out about those guys' channel. They weren't selling on YouTube. They were just these channels like, look what sold, or I bought these, whatever. I bought these shirts or whatever. Like Mike, like Global Voodoo was like a big clothing guy at the time, and cards. He was selling cards too and stuff. And it was like, I bought these shirts at the thrift store, and here's what I sold it for, and da 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 da. And Craigslist Hunter had the pawn shop, so people would come to him and trade in stuff or sell him stuff, and he'd turn around and resell it at his store. And Lonnie was like a retail arbitrage, or like a flea market guy, like, you know what I mean, buying and selling whatever. But they weren't selling on YouTube, but they were just on YouTube talking about what they were selling. And I just found it super fascinating. But all this time I'm still working at this corporate job, you know what I mean? And I'm like 9 to 5 in it. And I would dabble here and there after I saw that thing about the Walmart. Like, if I saw something cool on clearance, I would buy it and resell it. And I was like, yeah, this is awesome. You know what I mean? But I wasn't anywhere near it. But then towards the end, like, it was probably like more like 2015-ish, I started getting more serious about it. Like, I changed, because my eBay store was just my name. Like, I wasn't paying for a store subscription. I just had an account, you know what I mean? And it was That's when I changed it over to the January house, and then in 2018 I went full time.
And how did you come up with the name January House?
So this is a story where like it's one of these things where like I whenever I tell it, I feel like people are not going to believe me, but 1,000% this is true, right? So it's it's 20. It's probably 20. Let's see. Hold on a second. My son was born in 2014, so it's probably 2016, 2017. Let's just say it's 2017, whatever. And I have my daughter and I have my son. My daughter is whatever, like she's 6, 7, and he's like 2, 3, like that. Those are the ages, right? And at this time, I'm trying to think of a store name for eBay. I didn't want it to be like Mike's Closet or Mike's Stuff or whatever. I wanted something different, you know what I mean? And I had been thinking about it, whatever. And I'm driving down the street one day. This is 1,000% true. And my 2 kids are in the back, and my son is like 2 or 3, and he's at that age where like he's talking, but like sometimes I can't understand what he's saying. Like, but my daughter can always decipher what he's about, right? If I don't know, right? So he starts talking, and I just hear him talking, and my daughter's like kind of talking back to him, but I don't understand what he's saying. And I asked her, I said, what's he talking about? You know, does he need something, whatever? And she's like, I don't know, Dad. And she always knew. And she's like, I'm like, what do you mean? And she's like, he's talking about going to the January house. And I'm like, what's that mean? And she's like, I don't know. He said he sees his grandfather there. Now, so this is 2017. My father passed away in 2000. So this is 17 years later. He's never met him. And I mean, he's 2 or 3 years old. Like, what story am I going to tell a 2 or 3 year old about his grandfather that he would even remember, really, at that point, or have any interest in, or whatever, right? And I almost drove off the road. I was like, what? And she's like, yeah, he says he sees him and he talks to him, and it's at the January house. And then he starts telling her things that there's no way he would know, like things about him that there's no way he would know it, and there's no way she would know it to even like repeat it back to me, because like I would tell her things about her grandfather, but not like it was like things about how he was sick and like things that were affecting him. Like I wasn't giving her like gory stories about my or like cancer. I wasn't telling her cancer stories, you know what I mean? I was telling her like, you know, my dad used to take me fishing, you know, and stuff like that. But
we're going to skip the fairy tales tonight. I'm going to tell you all about brain cancer.
Right, and radiation. Ready? Let's go. You know what I mean? And I was like, oh my gosh, like it was crazy. And like that's where the name the January house came from.
That's really cool.
From my 3-year-old son in the back seat in his car seat, telling my daughter about visiting his grandfather and things about his, like, because he smoked cigars. My dad, not my son. My dad smoked cigars. Like
your 3-year-old.
Yeah,
your
right.
3-year-old smoking cigars in the back seat.
My dad smoked cigars, and he would say, I forget how he phrased it now, but he was saying there's fire. He said there's fire, and she's like, but it's not the fire part. It's the after the fire. Like he was saying, like after the fire, like the smoke. He was saying like the smoke.
Yeah.
There's around him, and he's got fire with him, and just crazy stuff. And whether you believe that stuff or not, I'm not here to like convince you or whatever. You know what I mean?
No, I think it's great.
That's where the name came from. I was like, so when I got home, I was like, this is it, the January house. Because if you look at my name or it's like, where does these words come together? You know, how do they fit? You know, no one's ever heard of a January house or whatever. And I'm telling you, that's where the name came from, the January.
That's very cool.
Yeah, it was so cool. I mean, I was freaked out though. You know what I mean? Like, it's a cool story.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I was like really freaked out. You know what I mean? But
how long did it take you to make the transition from leaving your full-time job to becoming a full-time reseller?
Yeah, it took about 3 years, 2.5, 3 years. Because like,
what was it like? What was it when you decided? Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and give notice, and I'm going to put it all in on the reselling. What What went through your head?
I mean, I was just like, I can do this. Like, I don't know. Like, ever since that time where my dad's got sick, whenever there's like a tough situation that I have come up against or will come up against, like, is looming in the future, whatever, I always think back to, like, I got through that situation with my father. You know what I mean? Like, if I can do that, this isn't that. You know what I mean? This isn't taking care of somebody with brain cancer and, like, figuring out medications and driving them to the hospital and, like, I don't even, you know what I mean? Even, like, figuring out funeral things and, you know what I mean? And all that. Like,
Yeah.
I have that, I don't know, I have that kind of, like, I don't know, memory or not memory, like, I have that experience, like, back here. Like, I did it. I got through it. You know what I mean? And it was just me.
Right.
And I came out on the other side of it. So, whatever this is, if it's leaving to do something I'd rather do, and allows me to spend more time with my kids and allows me more freedom, and I'm not working for somebody else. The harder I work, the better it is for me, and I'm a hard worker. That kind of mentality. Like, it was more positive or, like, forward looking than, I mean, there was a little fear. I'm not going to say I wasn't afraid, but you know what I mean. There was more.
Yeah, I imagine there was some fear there. You've got kids, you've got,
Yeah.
some very grown-up adult responsibilities. It's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. I'm like, I can make it work. I'll figure it out. I don't know.
did uh, did you have a support system around you? Like, did everybody around you believe that you would do it, or was there pushback from people that are like, "Are you nuts? Why are you leaving, a job with benefits to go do this?"
There was a little bit of that. There was a little bit of both, really. I mean, I don't think I had anyone, like, come right to my face and say, you're out of your mind. What are you doing here? You know what I mean? But, like, are you sure? Or, like, what if this and that? You know what I mean? And I had some, stuff saved up, and you know what I mean. I had a little cushion to where if it really hit the fan, and you know what, if it really ever hit the fan, I could always go back. You know what I mean? Maybe not
Right.
maybe not that same exact job, but in the field, or I could always go back to cooking if I needed to. You know what I mean? Like, I knew how to do that. Like, and maybe it'd be tight or tough. You know what I mean? But, like, maybe I could do both. You know what I mean? Like, I'm always trying to think, like, okay, like, again, like, it wouldn't be the worst thing to happen to me. That already happened. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
this will be okay. Like, I'll make it work. Like, if you want it,
What
like,
uh,
get it.
what led you to reselling on YouTube specifically?
So YouTube specifically. So I had been watching these guys on YouTube for years, right? And then the pandemic happened. Really, COVID, right? So now we're at 2020. I'm like 3 years into my reselling career, and I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna try to do this YouTube thing. I'm like, why not? Like, I'll just go for it. You know what I mean? And I started a channel, and I started getting into, like, just the same type of videos that those guys were doing. Like, hey, I bought these things and it sold for $20, or I bought it for $1 and it sold for 50 or whatever it was. And I was making these just regular what sold videos.
Michael says the people closest to you are usually the
Yeah.
last to understand what you do.
Right.
That has been my experience with running a publishing house for sure, Michael.
Yeah, and I think they mean what everyone means well, right? Everyone's trying to be like, "Yo, are you sure?" Like, but, like, because they don't know. You know what I mean? Just the same as you
Yeah.
probably don't know exactly the ins and outs of what they're doing. You might know what
Right.
they do, but not like the nitty gritty details and what their life's like. So I think everyone's just concerned, and I think that's a good, it's a good thing. People like, hey, are you sure? Like, okay, but, like, if it gets hairy, let me know, or if I can help, let me know. You know what I mean, or whatever, like, type of thing. And I think it's just people just looking out, the people that love you, they're closest to you, just looking out for you. But anyway, I was watching these videos, and then I was like, I'm gonna make my channel, and I'm just gonna make these videos too. So I started doing the what sold videos, and I did a little kind of like tips and tricks videos, like things I had learned along the way, and I would try to, like, pass some information along. But then I noticed that, like, these online auctions, because I'm assuming it was more prominent then because of COVID. People were, not going out as much, but they still wanted to buy things. They still needed things. So they were turning to online retailers or places, to buy things from. And I think it was probably like a year-ish, maybe 2021, somewhere in there. I started doing auctions on YouTube. I think I just got into the community more with the reselling and saw these auctions, and I would go to these, and sometimes I would be like a guest, and I would, be able to sell a few things and then get the hell out of there. You know what I mean? And I was like, man, I'd like to do this like more often. You know what I mean? I'd like to resell like online, like on YouTube, because I was still selling, and even today I still sell on eBay. I sell on Macari. I sell on Facebook Marketplace. So it's not just YouTube, but I do like YouTube. I'd rather sell it direct to somebody, versus like, obviously having eBay take X percentage of the
Oh,
fees and all
absolutely.
that. You know what I mean? And plus,
Yeah.
like, I feel like eBay and Macari, like, it's great. Don't get me wrong, but like I always, there's that kind of, not a fear, but like you send it off, and they could say anything, like, "Oh, this is terrible," or blah blah blah. And I've had that like happen. Like they make up stories or whatever. I feel like the YouTube, like, if it's you buying something or whoever, you know what I mean? Like, I'm talking to you, like we know each other. You know what I mean? If there's a
Right.
problem, let me know. We'll figure it out. Not just some negative comment or negative feedback or whatever, you know what I mean, on my eBay account. You never contact me, you want a full refund, you're making up a story, you know what I mean, or whatever. Like, I'd rather do direct. Maybe that's the sales part of me. I'm always like, to this day, I'd rather talk to somebody face to face. I know we have like my kids, like, wow, we're not going to talk to somebody, or we would just order online. Like, you know what I mean? Like, no, go up to the counter and ask the guy, like, or the girl, or whatever. Like, call them on the phone, tell them, this is what you want. Um,
Regina
anyway,
says hello. Regina says hello. I've loved listening while working in the Lurkers Lounge.
the
Rawr.
Lurkers Lounge.
Always awesome to have you, Regina. I appreciate your support in the show. Now,
Um,
Mike, am I right that you took a break at some point? Because I know that when I discovered the reselling community in somewhere around the end of last year, I think it was, you were stopping in, and everybody was kind of making a big deal that you were back, and
yeah,
that nobody had seen you for a while. It seemed like what had happened?
yeah. So I had a show. I had my channel. I had my YouTube regular channel, and I still do, but now, and I had an auction channel, and I was doing auctions like only on Sunday nights, and it was okay, but it wasn't great. And at this time, I had met my girlfriend, and I was just kind of like doing things with my girl, like hanging out with her more. My focus was more on eBay and the online sales, and my kids were like a little younger, more like things were going on with them where I was, wanting to be at their events. I mean, part of the reason, is like the freedom, to be a reseller is the freedom to spend your time however you
Absolutely.
want to spend your time. And I mean, you still have to work, but I can choose to work like at 10 o'clock at night when they're sleeping, you know what I mean? And go see their play at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, you know what I mean? Or their baseball
Right.
game or whatever it is, dance recital, whatever, you know what I mean? So I had taken a little time, and then my girlfriend and I were getting a little bit more serious, and I ended up moving in with her. And when I did, and we started talking about the reselling, and I was like, well, maybe I'll get back more into YouTube. I used to do these YouTube auctions a lot, and I haven't done them that much lately. And Nana Tink actually reached out to me, and she had a show. She had an auction show. It was called Selling with Friends, and it was like her and a number of other ladies who none of them resell anymore on YouTube. I'm sure they still resell.
It's
Um,
obvious that you and Nana Tank have a very close
yeah,
relationship.
yeah. She's great, and I owe her a lot because she reached out. She's like, hey, because one of the ladies was leaving, and she's like, we're trying to fill in a spot. And if you're thinking about coming back, because I had been in the chats like, well, maybe I'll do auctions, again. And people were like, yeah, do your auctions again, this and that. And Nana Tink got word of it, sent me a message, and she's like, if you want to come join us one night, da da da. And I'm like, all right. So I jumped in with her and these other ladies, and they're like, well, come back and do it next week or Thursday or whatever, you know what I mean? So it kind of just snowballed from there a little bit. But yeah, Nanotink was the driver really of getting me back into doing these auctions. And she's great, and she's always been great. I've known her from like my early YouTube days. We kind of started channels around the same time ish. She started a little bit before me, but we ran in the same circles, and I would see her in the chats and stuff like that. So we knew each other. But she's been a great friend, and yeah, so that's what kind of got me back. Her doing that, and then one by one, these other ladies just for different reasons just stopped auctioning, and now it's really just Nana and I, and then I started doing a couple on my own, and then now I do some on other shows. You know what I mean, like Two Old Guys or whoever.
Why do you think that you are in such high demand? What do you think it is about whether you or your style of selling that has made it that so many people want you to be involved with their shows?
Well, I don't know. I'd like to hope it's my personality. Like, I try to have fun. Like, I'm a fun guy. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not like, I don't know. I don't take myself super seriously. You know what I mean? And I really enjoy it. Maybe that's what comes through the screen. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I do enjoy the auctions. Like, I have fun. Like, and whether I sell 10 things or 100 things that night, like, I have fun and I tell the stories of my life. You know what I mean? It's kind of like having that YouTube channel before the auction channel and the auction combined. You know what I mean?
Right.
And we have like the regulars, and I feel like I know them and they know me, you know, at least to a degree. You know what I mean? Like, I don't really hide anything. You know, I mean, like, I try not to put the kids on camera. You know what I mean? Just because they're young.
Yeah.
It's just a weird world out there. You know what I mean? But like, yeah. And Johnny was talking about on his morning show today, you know, some sellers.
Michael says it's definitely your personality. You're very chill.
I mean, I try, like, you know, like, I've been through some stuff and I've been through it, and I didn't always handle it, you know, the best way either. You know what I mean? Throughout my life. But like, I've learned, like, it'll be okay. You know what I mean? Like, and if you work hard and just have fun, and, you know, like, what's the worst that's going to happen? You know what I mean? I don't know. And I like finding cool stuff. And I think I have cool stuff at good prices. And I think I'm like, another draw that I do think I have auction wise is, like, I'm one of the only guys that offers like free shipping at a certain level.
Yeah.
Like, there are people that do it, don't get me wrong. I'm not the only guy, but that's, I think, a selling point. And I don't know if that's what makes me in demand for other resellers to have me on the channel, but it makes me, I think, in demand to have buyers come buy from me, where they know if they hit the $30 threshold, they're getting free shipping, when the price of shipping has been crazy lately. You know what I mean?
Do you feel that you are competing against other resellers for that attention and that dollar, or do you feel like there's enough room for everybody? How do you approach the market that you're trying to sell to?
Yeah, no, I think that I don't have any animosity or any, like, I have to sell more than Nanotink tonight, or I have to, you know, be on Two Old Guys and sell the most out of the, you know, or the hump day auction. I think there's plenty for everybody. It depends on what you sell, you know, and you know, there's markets for things like, I don't know, like, Nana has a lot of crafting things. I don't find a lot of that stuff. You know what I mean? I kind of wish I did, because she sells a lot of it. You know what I mean? There's some people that sell clothing. I can't sell clothing worth a lick for whatever reason. I don't know what it is. But I find cool stuff, and I try to price it, you know, inexpensively to sell it. Like, you know, let's move some stuff. And I just feel like I don't know, I connect with the other resellers. Like, I don't know, I'm a fun guy, and like, I like to have fun, and I think I bring a sense of, like, you know, like, I don't, like, you can get on YouTube, anybody, and just be like, okay, this is $2 start, ready, $2. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, but I feel like I bring a little energy, a little bit more, and, you know, because sometimes some of the resellers aren't extrovert personality types.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I think our industry, or our business, or whatever you call it, lends itself to, like, you know, like you were saying, like a solo, you know, working in your spare bedroom, you know what I mean, like, and this and that and the other thing. And like you hear it in the chats, like people are like afraid to start a YouTube channel, or like afraid to auction with people, or they don't want to be on camera, you know what I mean? And I feel like I'm like the total opposite of that, you know what I mean? Like I'm like, yeah, let's get out there and sell stuff, let's make it happen, you know, let's have a good time. I don't know, let's talk about this, that, or the other thing. And I don't know, I think that's what makes me, you know, my personality makes people want to buy from me.
You have a catchphrase that has now been adopted by pretty much everybody. Um, where does look at it? Are
I
you
don't
looking at it? Where did that come from?
just
Because
off
now that has been aped by, I mean, you literally hear it in just about every auction you go into.
one night.
Where I mean, it's become your signature. It's become your signature thing. So what's the evolution of that?
I don't know. Like sometimes when I'm auctioning, like I don't even know half the stuff that comes out of my mouth half the time. But like I'll look at the chat and see like what people are talking about, like what their reactions are, and like, you know, like dead air, like, you know, from like, you know, no one's
Absolutely.
talking, like no one's saying anything or whatever. Like it gets to me a little bit. Like I want to see a little, you know what I mean? Like not that they have to buy. I'm not saying that, but like if no one's talking about anything and you can see there's 20 people in the chat, like, and I'm showing something, you know what I mean? And I'm like, okay, so this is da da da. I'm like, are you guys looking at this? Look at it, you know what I mean? And like, I don't know. And I just started saying it, and it just kind of stuck, and I just kept saying it, and yeah, now it's a thing. Like, are you even looking at it? Look at it. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm just messing around, you know what I mean? Like, because I'll say that 100 times a night, and you know, it doesn't equate to 100 sales of things. You know what I mean? It's just
Right.
a funny thing to say, you know? I
We,
don't know,
we
it's just
also
off the cuff.
we also do have to address the fact that you have reached something of a sex symbol status um, in the reselling community. You are genuinely good-hearted about it, whether you're getting the attention from women or from men. But
Uh,
is that awkward for you? Is it uncomfortable? Is it how do you deal with that? Because people are pretty unabashed and pretty uncensored about how they feel about you in that regard. Is
right.
is that uh, is that uncomfortable? Do you wish they would focus more on your professional stuff than that? How 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 do you deal with that?
Um, I don't hate it. It sometimes can be a little uncomfortable depending on the comment or the comments that are out there. Like sometimes, and like I have one of these, like, you know, like I get read real easy. You know what I mean? Like, so I think that there's two things. Like one, I think people say things to get a reaction out of me, or to see me turn red, or to see what I'll say when they say it. And then also, you got to remember, we're on the internet here, and it's a lot easier for people to just type things into a keyboard that aren't
Yeah,
on screen. You know what I mean? And you know, you see that in like Twitter or whatever, Facebook. You know what I mean? Like people will just run off with things that they would never say in real life. You know what I mean?
right.
So you have to like kind of have that mentality that like, okay, like how real is this? What's going on here? You know what I mean, or whatever. Like, is this internet stuff? You know what I mean? And not that they're not sincere, or they're like, but there is a level of like back and forth with it. You know what I mean? Too. It only makes me uncomfortable when it's like explicit, I guess. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because like you and I don't mind so much, but if I'm on somebody else's channel, I'm very cognizant of like trying to be, you know, like I don't want to have a bad show on somebody else's channel, or do something that would get that channel in trouble, or you know, people talk about it in a negative way. You know what I mean? So like
Yeah, I've heard you be very humble and make very sincere comments on other people's show about, hey, I'm sorry I screwed up, or I'm sorry I was late. Like
yeah,
I don't want to, I don't want to hurt your show. And
right,
and
yeah,
it's obvious that's coming from a place of sincerity.
yeah,
When you
yeah.
do it.
Because regardless, like we are putting on like a show, if you think about, like, not like it's fake, you know what I mean, but like I don't know, like if I'm watching, I want to be the type of creator content on an auction that I would want to watch, right? So like if it's monotone or boring or no personality or negative or explicit or something's bad, you know what I mean? Like I wouldn't want to watch that. I wouldn't want to come back probably, you know what I mean, if I was
Right.
watching, you know what I mean? So like I'm very kind of aware of that. I don't know, that sense of what's going on. And it only really bothers me with the comments. Like I appreciate it. Like if people really feel that way, like that's cool, you know what I mean? Like but if it gets explicit, I get a little like I'm always like it's like, oh no. But you know, so far I guess it's been okay.
Regina says, I will say what I type once I'm comfortable with someone, so make sure you wash your hands because you never know what someone has held in their hand. I missed that story. I've gotta go back to that one.
We
And
were just
then Michael says, I don't have a filter, so Jay constantly has to fling pennies at my head to shut up. So, Mike, as we wrap up here, two questions. What do you see? What do you see the future holding for you?
I'm at a point now where I've been thinking like as I've been going through the reselling business, like well, not every year, but like I try to think of like, in the beginning, like I need a thermal printer. Like I know it sounds dumb maybe, but like when you start out, you're using your regular printer and you're cutting the labels out and you're taping them on, which is fine. It's just the way everyone starts out usually. But as you get more into it, you're like, for the business to grow, I need a thermal printer because this is not cutting it, buying ink and cutting this stuff up and tapes and all, right? And then it's like whatever the next thing is after, like a new laptop or a new webcam or whatever it is, you know what I mean? And I think, I don't know, I'm at the point now where like I kind of wish I had like an assistant, or should I pay someone to do X or Y, or take photos or do the listings, or I don't know. Like I'm at a point now where like the YouTube side, it's kind of shifted. Like the YouTube side is big now, and my eBay online stuff is smaller. But only really because I've shifted buying things to that audience as well. Because some things will sell better on eBay, you know what I mean? Like,
Right.
I don't know, than YouTube. You know what I mean? Like I don't sell brooches on YouTube. You know what I mean? I mean on eBay. I don't sell brooches on eBay. I sell brooches on YouTube. You know what I mean? Because there's a bazillion brooches on eBay. I mean, yeah.
Right.
So you're like in there in the mix with everybody. You know what I mean? But I have people that will buy these specific brooches on YouTube. So I don't know if it's. I don't know. I feel like I could get like an employee or whatever. I don't know what you want to call it. I call it an assistant or something. You know what I mean? Employee sounds weird. Like, But like someone to do something like that for me, or like, I don't know. That's the growth. I got to grow it a little bit. I got to scale it. I got to scale it a little bit. Like I've got all the accessories. I've got good sources of, products. Whatever, like items. I can source from the flea market. I can source from the live auction. Da 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 da. You know what I mean? Facebook or whatever. But now I need a little bit more help with either pictures or listing, or I don't know. Just I think that's next for me, is just growing it. Me plus one, we'll say, instead of and just see. And maybe it's not, but I think I'd like to at least try. You know what I mean? And just see. Okay,
Yeah.
paying somebody, I don't know, $15, $20, I don't even know. You know what I mean? And what are they going to do? And how long are they going to do it for? Or what types of things are, because at this point I've been a reseller by myself, like really since kind of like 2016, on my own since 2018. You know what I mean? Like I have my ways, and maybe they're not the best ways. I'm not saying it's like I'm perfect, but like I have a system, I have my ways, you know what I mean? And if I bring somebody else on, like, and if they don't do it the way I want, like, is that a problem? You know what I mean?
Right.
Maybe they'll do it better. I don't know. Maybe I could learn from them, but that's kind of like the next step for me, I think, is like growing with an assistant. I got this shed. This was like the last big thing. It's a 12 by 12 shed dedicated. It's just my reselling stuff in here. You know what I mean? And my YouTube
Yeah.
stuff. And I have internet, and I have, electricity, and all my inventory's here. And I'm like, okay, now what? You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
so that's kind of where I'm at now with it. So we'll see. I don't know. I'm still toying with it. I still have, I have the kids, busy as hell, you know what I mean? And, like to spend time with my girlfriend still. and the YouTube and the eBay. It's a lot. You know what I mean? So I think about it in between the times when I'm doing all those other things. You know what I mean? But we'll see. Maybe there'll be a plus one in here someday. You know what I mean? Helping out.
And then my final question to you is the question that I ask of all of my authors and anybody that I ever interview. How do you personally define success? How do you know that how do you measure whether or not you've been successful? What's your barometer?
That's a good question. Let me think. I think if you're happy, let me back up. I think a lot of people try to plan. At least I did. I always tried to it's got to go this way. I'm going to do X, and then Y is going to happen, and then Z, and then I'm going to do this, and then that's going to happen, and then I'm going to do this. And life isn't like that, you know what I mean? And things are going to get in your way, and how you react and how you handle that is tough. It can be tough, you know what I mean? And is tough. But I think success for me is okay, here was the general plan, you know what I mean? And sometimes it is a figure. If I'm going to have an auction, I'd like to sell X amount today, you know what I mean? Or, I do keep a spreadsheet year over year and month over month, from the years prior. I do like to try to, hey, I had a better, July 2026 than July 2025, 24, 23, whatever. So I do see that as successful if the numbers keep going up. But I think ultimately, for me, I think as long as you're happy, just be happy. Are you happy with what happened? Maybe it didn't go exactly the way you wanted it to go, and you only sold, $100 instead of $500. You know what I mean? But if there were things that you couldn't control, or whatever happened, maybe the guy you sell books to isn't in that show that night, or I don't know, maybe the flea market didn't have brooches for you to buy that week, so you had to sell other things. You know what I mean? I don't know. Are you happy? Did you put in the effort? Did I do everything I could do? And then, whatever the outcome is, am I happy with that? And if I'm yes, then I was successful. That's how I look at it. Did I do the best I could do with what I had? Okay, yes. If no, well then, okay, then I'm not going to be successful, right? But if yes, okay, and then did it go the way I want? Well, maybe not. But at the end of the day, am I happy with it? Yes. Well, then it was a success. You know what I mean? And I think, could it be better? Sure. Let's jot down a few things on what we could do better to improve next time. But it was still a success. It wasn't a failure, right? So, I don't know. That's for me. Maybe that's not the best answer you probably ever heard, but
You know what? I never get the same answer twice. So that's why I love asking the question, because everybody views it differently. Mike, I really appreciate you taking the time to be here on the night shift. I know the time difference is quite a bit hefty, 3 hours there. I know that you should have your head on the pillow at the moment. But I very much appreciate you being our guest tonight, and getting to find out more about you and your business. Very much appreciated. Look forward to working with you more in the future. I am going to send you to the green room here and wrap up the show. So I'll be back with you in a bit.
Thanks for having me again, Jay. I really appreciate it. Anytime. I'd love to come back some other time if you'll have me. Thanks again.
All right, folks, and that is going to do it for the night shift for a Wednesday night. Many, many thanks to Mike for being our guinea pig, if you will, for our first interview show here. Just the first of many, many more to come as we talk to other folks. It's going to be a lot of folks in the reselling community coming up, just because that's kind of where I have a lot of connections at the moment. But we will be branching out and talking to folks from all other kinds of backgrounds. For those of you that know Mike only from his auctions, I hope this helps give you a little bit better insight into the man behind the auction, and a little bit more about who he is and what he does. So once again, thank you very much. Please do hit that thumbs up on your way out tonight. We definitely would appreciate that. Be sure to tell your friends about the night shift and the things we're trying to do over here. I will be back on Friday night with the Friday Night Hang here on the night shift, and I will see you folks all then. As always, find a good book, read a good book, come back, tell us all about it.